This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is brought to you by the Tested Premium member community. It's thanks to you guys out there, our best fans who let us do what we do in recording this podcast and making some of our most favorite shows, from build projects like SnapFit model kits to special effects tutorials from Frank Ippolito and in-depth investigations into projects that scientists are working on with Kishore and Indre in Science in Progress. Check out our premium content library at tested.com/premium.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, June 29th, 2017. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome, everyone. How is everyone doing? Starting with the person immediately to my left, Jeremy Williams.
I'll give myself a 7 out of 10, Norman.
Oh, well, hopefully we'll get that to a 9.5 out of 10 in the next hour and a half to 2 hours. How about you, Kishore Hari?
I'll be a 9.5 out of 10 out the gate,
Whoa.
so I can just coast.
Let's turn that down to an 8 out of 10 right now. Let's give us room to grow. If you start too high, then we're not going to get anywhere. Then it's just downhill from there.
And how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I would say also a 7.5 out of 10. Last week, if you listen to last week's podcast, I was half asleep for most of it. Now, typically I'm about a quarter asleep through the podcast, but last week I was really tired.
You had just flown in.
Yeah, jet lag. I didn't realize how bad jet lag had hit me until I think the weekend.
Until you heard Jeremy and I talking for an hour and a half, and you're like, wow.
Whoa.
That'll do it.
They're talking about CRISPR. But it's an interesting occasion today, and well, I guess we'll start at the top. Today is June 29th, at least when people are listening out there. It is the 10-year anniversary of the announcement of the original iPhone.
No, it's
of the release.
Of the release.
The release. The
announcement
announcement was weeks ago.
was in January, I think.
Then that means that 10 years ago today, I was recording Maximum PC Podcast.
With your first iPhone?
No, the day it came out. And then as soon as the podcast was over, I rushed out to the Apple Store. I was producing the podcast from Chicago. And so it was, I don't know what time of day it would have been, but the store was still open.
Where were you?
And I
on
didn't.
June 29th.
Yeah.
2007.
I took a taxi cab.
So you got the original one.
I did. And then I got the refund like 2 months later.
Why did you get a refund?
Everyone.
did.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
like they
$100
decided,
or
yeah.
it was a mea culpa because it was $800 or however much was it back then, $600 on contract, and it wasn't until after they renegotiated. It would be discounted after contract, or you can pay it unlocked. Yeah, so they did the. I guess you could hear Steve Jobs gritting his teeth as he made that announcement. Like, this phone is worth this much.
I'm going to have to wait an extra 5 years for my UFO campus.
You didn't get the first iPhone, Kishore, did you?
I've actually never owned an iPhone.
Never owned an iPhone. So what was your world like in 2007 on June 29th? Were you were, I assume, aware of the iPhone's release? Were you interested? Were you in the camp that thought, no tactile keyboard, no physical keyboard, this isn't going to work?
I was definitely in the where's the keyboard camp, because I was big into having keyboards on my phones, as my phone graveyard in my office desk at home can attest to. But you know what? Google can probably tell me where I was in June 2007. Oh, I was hiking in Yosemite, apparently.
How do you know this?
My Google Photos.
Wow.
Okay. All right. I also was working at Maximum PC with Will, and
Recording a podcast.
I guess I was on that I probably was on that podcast. My goodness, this is crazy. Do you remember us talking about the iPhone 10 years ago?
I mean, no, but we must have.
I remember I had a Samsung flip phone. It had a camera on it that was amazing, had no email, nothing. People didn't think about data plans the same way. Most people didn't have a data plan. They just had a voice plan for their cell phone. And but smartphones were around, obviously. People had various degrees. They had Blackberries. There was Windows Mobile. And I remember being on the edge of deciding whether to jump into buying a blasphemous iPhone or a Windows Mobile phone made by HTC. HTC had this phone, I believe it was the 8525 was the phone. I have a picture of it I've pulled up. And it was a touchscreen with a non-capacitive touchscreen, resistive touchscreen, and you slid the phone and tilted it up and to reveal the keyboard underneath. Which back then, 10 years ago, I thought this was great design.
That sounds like the Palm Pre was like that too.
Yeah.
Oh, but you slid it the wrong. You're talking about sliding it vertically.
Yeah.
This is landscape.
Oh, so weird. Because I was I had a Palm Trio. I think that was 08 or so, and so I was envious of that design.
But this is an example of one of the designs that Steve Jobs would have put up on the screen when he unveiled the iPhone. It's like, this is the reason why we need the iPhone. There's so many buttons on the thing.
Well, but most of the buttons are for a keyboard. It's not like the
Right.
buttons were for power and just power and sleep and a Windows button or something.
Did you get it?
I got the iPhone.
You went with the iPhone.
And it was a last minute decision. I scrambled and I found a retailer. It was possible on day one in 2007, I think, because the price was high, one, and two, people were unsure of this new platform. But even though I bought the phone, I couldn't use most of its functionality because I didn't have a data plan. And so I needed to wait a couple of days, sign up for a Singular back then, and get a data plan. And it really was that capacitive touchscreen, the instant response in scrolling.
It was the first time I had ever experienced multi-touch. Like
Right.
Microsoft had the Surface demo that they had shown only on the internet. I mean, no one ever actually saw one of these things.
And when you say Surface, this was the table.
It was
The big rear projection table, which is a concept that has now been adapted for whiteboards, essentially, smart whiteboards.
But to actually be able to pinch and zoom, that was a new experience at the time. And
Yeah.
that's cool.
Given where we are 10 years later, I mean, if we had an original iPhone here, it wouldn't look dramatically different from our current phones.
I have an original iPhone at the office.
Oh,
It's
grabbed it.
I should have grabbed it.
It's thicker. It's a little smaller in terms of overall size, but I mean, it basically looks the same as our phones right now. Slower data rates by maybe like 5-6 times.
And I think that was the
more.
heart of the lawsuit that Apple had against Android, and that the debate was whether this rectangular screen design was going to be an inevitability in terms of product design, or was that something that was patentable?
Yep.
I have to say, maybe I'm being cynical. I'm surprised we haven't iterated farther, given like how important of a touchstone that was 10 years ago to where we are now. Or maybe I'm just somebody needs to play the Louis C.K. "We're flying through aluminum tubes" clip.
I mean, I think in terms of physical design, material science, and battery, like we've done significantly. The screens are much higher density, higher refresh rates, thinner, lighter, and they've been able to pack so much more electronics in there. I think, but the real change has obviously been the software and the infrastructure around smartphones and how the internet has really adapted itself to cater to mobile devices. But we're getting ahead of ourselves because that's all technology news. And we got to start off with our first segment, which is pop culture news.
Have you guys seen Glow yet on Netflix?
I haven't. I just finished House of Cards on Netflix, and I regret it.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to watch House of Cards. There's too many, and like I feel like the realities of CNN is probably more interesting than House of Cards.
You watch TV for escapism,
yeah,
and something that's a political drama. they have to go even crazier than what's happening in the real world. And at some point, it feels like everything, the plot doesn't matter. It's just like, well, here are some really bitter people acting really well on screen, doing terrible things.
Glow is a totally different kind of show. I mean, it's Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling is what it stands for. And it's an 80s show about female wrestlers that is amazing. I wasn't the biggest wrestling fan, but when I was like, about 10 years old, I'd watch the WWF like every Saturday morning.
So correct me if I'm wrong. This is based on a true story.
Yep.
There's actually a documentary that inspired this show, and Glow, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, is that what it is? Or
Glamorous? Yes. Glamorous or gorgeous.
They were created as a indie league to mostly be like, did they actually were they taken seriously? Was it just like a sideshow thing?
So I don't know the actual history of the league itself. The show is basically, that's the premise. I've only seen episode 1 so far. It's been really great. It stars Alison Brie, who I think is super underrated as a really wonderful actress.
From Community, Mad Men.
Yeah, Community especially. I think that was one of those shows that will stand the test of time as one of like the best sitcoms of the 2000s. But anyway, this is a hoot. Gorgeous Lady, like, it's absolutely so much fun. And
if you're the type of person who says a hoot, then you may like this new Netflix show.
Well, maybe I'm
Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Maybe I'm just in the afterglow because I went on Saturday. I went to a underground wrestling match, a real life one.
What?
That was amazing. I drove out to this town called Knights in California to go to this thing called Hood Slam, and basically, Knights in California is like an hour and a half from here, like in the deep East Bay. And this like only bar in town had a backyard, and they set up a wrestling ring in it, and all these characters came out, and it was some of the most fun I've had at a live event in years.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, they're so over the top. So Drugs Bunny is one of the chief characters, and
are they wearing masks?
They had masks. Like they had like the faux European guy versus the American, like, USA type. They had a U-Haul match, so they loaded the ring in from a U-Haul. They had a U-Haul match where the point of the match was to lock the other person in the U-Haul. That's how you won. It was amazing.
How was the crowd? Was underground wrestling like you walk into a warehouse and you have to say the password?
No, I mean, it was there wasn't that many people there. It was like 100, maybe about 100 people, maybe a little less. But
that's good.
They do regular shows in Oakland. And so I thought it was super, super fun. And I had gone to a wrestling event at DragonCon as one of my sort of favorite things that I did last year. And this totally lived up the hype. I encourage, if you have like amateur wrestling in your town with these types of characters, it is a hoot.
How did you find yourself there?
I went with a couple friends that had gone before to the one in Oakland.
All right.
It was pretty great. But Glow, especially for you, Jeremy, as an avid 80s fan.
I'll watch it. Now that I see the photos of the haircuts, I'm into that.
The haircuts did it for you. Did you see anything?
What? Oh, I saw Cars 3 finally. It took me a week. Usually I'm a first weekend kind of Pixar guy, but I finally saw Cars 3. Have you guys seen that yet?
No.
No, I
I'm
have
super
not.
interested.
Yeah. I think Cars 2 burned. Like, Cars was... It was divisive. Like, kids loved it. The Cars, I think.
Oh.
Yeah. So a lot of the over-the-top personalities.
Well, as we said before, Cars is unique because there's no bad guy. Like, it's the ego. It's just Lightning McQueen's inner demons that he has to fight with. And so it's a nice, soft movie in that way. And Cars 2 is definitely bad guys. It brought the whole James Bond thing back. But the Cars 3 pretends like Cars 2 never happened.
Huh. And it's still John Lasseter.
I don't know. It's not John Lasseter.
Oh,
he didn't direct it, I don't think.
Interesting.
I should look that up. But
okay.
I would encourage you guys to, check it out. But it's not the best Pixar film ever. It's got a good ending.
Okay.
But man, it's just kind of slow.
Does it open its way to to another Cars movie?
I mean, I don't think it's necessary. No.
Yeah.
I mean, no. I think they kind of conclude it well.
We've
Funny.
had 3 Cars movies, 3 Toy Story movies,
Yeah.
and a 4th one in the works, and yet Incredibles 2 still a year away at least. D23 is coming up.
Brian Fee was the director
There
of
you go.
Cars 3.
Interesting. So you recommend it?
No, I mean,
It doesn't come. It'll be a Netflix watch.
if you stick with it and you're into it to the end, it's got a good ending. It concludes well, but it's just a little plotting and slow.
Sounds like it's a victim of Pixar's success.
Tell me how
like
much
it doesn't live up to the other ones.
How much Mater is in
No.
this?
Mater's in it. Mater's in it.
A big part?
No, not like Cars 2 big.
Okay. All right.
No, it's mainly Lightning McQueen and a new character.
Okay. Interesting. Is it just like Talladega Nights? Tell me it's just like Talladega
It's
Nights.
not. No, I haven't actually seen Talladega Nights, but it's
you
not.
should watch a
it's not-
back-to-back Talladega Nights,
It's
Cars
not
3.
It's not like that. It's not a comedy like that.
Oh, okay. This weekend, I met up with Will and Gary and their kids, and we saw Totoro on the big screen. My Neighbor
big screen.
Totoro.
Is that a new transfer or anything?
It's not a new transfer. I think it's just in a celebration of its anniversary. They're doing Ghibli Fest,
Cool.
And they're playing all the Studio Ghibli films once a month, I think.
Does it resonate with the kids?
It was all kids. It was
Cool.
it was like parents and kids in the audience. It was so interesting to watch it. Like you turn into a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old when you're watching this in a room full of giggling kids, and it's at parts of, if you haven't seen it, it's a little dark. There are feels in it. But there's so much wonder and joy. It's not a long film either.
We talk about cult classics for adult. I feel like Totoro is the cult classic for kids right now. Like, it is super popular amongst my kids' friends.
That's funny.
And so, but not universal. Like, some of those films are dark. Like, and I don't
they're
like
surreal for
Yeah.
sure. So they take a while to understand. So this is the Disney version. In terms of Disney does the distribution, I think Disney has the U.S. rights to do the dubbing for Totoro. But I read this story. I want to say, it was on Kotaku earlier this month, and I didn't realize this. I might have been cognizant of it subconsciously, but there are 2 versions of the U.S. film My Neighbor Totoro.
In what way? Like a dubbing kind of?
2 dubs, yes. Before Disney got the rights to distribute, Fox Studios did the U.S. dubbing and had different voice performers. So the current Totoro, the one you'd see in theaters, when you buy in the Blu-ray, I believe has Dakota Fanning and Elle Fanning that do the voices, and they do a great job. They sound perfectly appropriate for the sisters. But there are YouTube videos you can dig up, and you can hear the comparisons, and there's a slight different performances. And a lot of people growing up in the 80s, the film came out in 88, I think, 80s and 90s, watching that old U.S. dub version, that's the version in their head.
Oh, weird.
So it's imagine if you were watching what's a great animated film, Lion King or something in the 90s, and then suddenly you watch Lion King in theaters today, and it was no longer Jonathan Taylor Thomas's voice, and it was some other voice.
And you're like,
it'd be weird.
Something's wrong.
Something's
here.
wrong. Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But it was the same translation.
The words were the same.
That's interesting because when Akira had 2 different versions done, and they actually did a retranslation for the Blu-ray, I think, and that was far improved. It gave the story a lot better context.
Did anyone show up in costume?
No one showed up in costume.
Ah, come on, army of Totorai.
Also, for some reason, they have to get famous people to do the voice. Totoro, the character itself, he grunts and growls, and they got Frank Welker to do the voice. He did Scooby-Doo.
Why?
He did
Yeah.
Scooby. You mean
Yeah,
that guy?
Yes, is also the voice, the now official canonical voice of Totoro in film.
Wow.
I was also getting over some jet lag, and Danica sick this week, so we watched some bad films. We watched 2 bad films I want to give a shout out to. One is that have redeeming qualities. The Great Wall.
No.
The Matt Damon, which is terrible. I'm sure one redeeming quality is that the costumes that Weta made for this film are fantastic.
I believe that. Is it better than the South Park episode where they have Mongolians on the other side of the wall in South Park? Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a new movie, right? I mean, just a couple years old.
Last year.
Yeah.
It was a big budget film. A great director, Zhang Yimou, I think, and it's mostly English, but a lot of like Asian stars in this film. But the plot is terrible. Some of the plot mechanics are real bad. Matt Damon's acting his terrible accent. He sounds like they play it as him as like a crusader, you know, from the West that comes to China. But the costumes are wonderful. And while watching the film, I looked online to see if I could find auctions for the costumes, and no one has any words on where these costumes may have gone, because they must have made hundreds of them for the film.
Okay, so Great Wall, watch it on mute. Got it?
Yep. The other film, Power Rangers.
Oh no, come on, Norm.
Now, I don't think you have to appreciate the old Power Rangers to like this new one. I thought the new Power Rangers was actually pretty decent. It was not nearly as bad as I thought. And there was one moment when they first morph into the Power Rangers that I got chills, because the score for this movie I thought was fantastic.
Did it have arpeggios?
It had arpeggios. It got me as I was watching this. I'm like, ooh, this reminds me of Tron Legacy. It had like a very Tron Legacy score. I don't know. We can't play it right now.
Does that get you every time? Anytime arpeggios show up?
Oh yeah. And then I started Googling, like, what is it about this chord progression that gets me, that does something for me? And it's like the same thing in Stranger Things. And I sent Jeremy a link. There's a YouTube channel for Reverb.
You tweeted it, right?
Yeah. They review instruments and synths and synthesizers, and they did this breakdown of the Stranger Things theme using what's essentially I think the equipment that was used to create it, and it's a really cool watch.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Arpeggios.
There you go.
I just got chills.
I got chilled every time. I'm up to an 8.5 now. All right, back to the 10-year anniversary of the iPhone. You know, there's going to be a new iPhone this fall. We all anticipate it being announced in September. No one knows whether it's going to be called the iPhone 7S or the 8, and a lot of people think this might be called the 8. But there are now increasing rumors and speculation about what this phone is going to look like and what its features might be, now that we're past WWDC and iOS 11 and its features being announced. So there are a couple photos, and you always got to take these things with a grain of salt. There's some tweeted photos of what may look like the back of one of these phones. And what's most unique about this design is that it looks like this is going to be a non-plus size phone with a plus size screen, so about the same form factor as the iPhone 7 or 6, that size, but it will also have two cameras. So the iPhone 7 Plus right now has two cameras. You have your portrait mode 50mm lens, and as well as your 29mm equivalent lens, and they are left and right oriented. And it looks like, according to these rumors, that the phone will have two cameras, but will be vertically oriented, top to bottom, which I'm not sure. Someone who studies computer vision, or does it success? Does it have the two? Someone who studies AR, reach out. Let us know if there's any benefit to that, to AR, to depth sensing, basically. The cameras being
vertical versus horizontal?
Vertical versus horizontal.
Can you imagine any reason why there would be? I mean, I realize that the horizontal matches human configuration, but there's no reason why. I see depth just as well if I turn my head sideways, right?
Yeah. Well, it could be how people hold the phones, right? Most people hold phones at an angle, right? So if you pick up your phone, everyone can do this at home. You hold your phone. Rarely do you hold your phone perfectly perpendicular with the floor.
Yeah.
You're mostly tilting it down to face up to you, or kind of facing it out to the world. Now, because of that angle, you're going to get some natural distance, like the wavering angle, you're going to get more information.
You're
with
saying one
stacked
lens will be
cameras.
closer than the other?
Oh, and they'll always
your
be
subject?
adjusting. So
Yeah.
as they gather information and map out the world based on depth, you're going to get more variance that way.
Well, I mean, according to the Apple keynote, and I believe some of the videos that have come surfaced online since the beta went live
For ARKit,
for ARKit, is that it works with one camera,
it will also work with one camera.
and actually quite well.
That's what a lot of these video demos have shown. I don't know if, like, right now also the portrait mode on the iPhone works in people shooting in portrait orientation. I don't know if anyone really shoots portrait mode with the fake bokeh in landscape. Most of the photos I've seen have been in portrait, and I don't know if ARKit encourages people to use their phones in portrait or landscape. Like, I don't know if that's going to matter, because obviously if you have the camera stacked vertically, but you encourage the apps to be run landscape, then it's just going to be side by side as opposed to top and bottom. The other thing that lends some credence to these design rumors is there are many manufacturers overseas in China that make iPhone cases, and they have their production pipelines to prep for iPhone 8 or iPhone 7s cases well ahead of the phone's launch. And so Motherboard did a story where they reached out to several hundred iPhone case makers, and those case makers have already released designs and have already released their wholesale prices for what they think will be the case that fits the new iPhone, and they have like guarantees, like they have their insider info. So Motherboard asked, how can you be so certain? And they were very vague about it. But
you think they get that much of an advance notice
No,
from Apple?
they don't.
They
Apple
don't.
gives them no notice.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
Apple's said this numerous times. Like they are upset that they're getting these leaks to begin with. Apple has nothing to do with it.
I think it's all leaks. Or it could be very well that it's like these fake photoshops of phones that then that go viral within the case making community, and then all the CAD designers overseas start mocking up cases based on Photoshop phone photos.
Yeah. So there's not going to be an 8 Plus? Is that what you're implying?
Well, the long-standing rumor has been that there will be a very high-end iPhone, higher priced one, maybe like $100 to $200 more than a premium
like
iPhone.
$1,000 phone then?
Or make $1,000 phone, and this was the one that will have the minimum bezel, all the features, the big screen on the small form factor, and that would be called something. And then there would also be your standard 7S, 7S Plus, or 8 and 8 Plus. In addition to that, I think some people still like having a physically bigger phone to hold, and even I've used now the new LG, used the GS8 a couple times, seen it in person. Like, those screens are big, but the perception isn't always that the screen is big, because the phone itself isn't so big.
You'll get adjusted to that though.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll take long either. Any other news out of Apple though?
Yeah, so Jeremy, you talked about some of these ARKit videos. So developers now have access to ARKit, and they're creating some small apps that you can run on any modern iPhone. And some of these try to demonstrate how accurate ARKit is with one camera. So you can draw a virtual ruler, for example, and I've seen videos where people pull the virtual ruler alongside a real ruler,
Tape
and
measure.
a tape measure, and it gets matched up, up to 4 feet. It's accurate.
It's a little bit off, but it's impressively accurate.
Right, with one camera. A lot of these videos don't do heavy taxing work on the depth sensing. They're not like moving Z depth very much. There's one video where they showed like a model airplane floating in the middle of the room, and then the person walked out of the room, did a lap around their office, and went back in the room, and the airplane was in the exact same place. And this is stuff that's going to be really important for AR, not just on phones, but also in terms of like pass-through AR, where we know that pass-through AR, the positional tracking, doesn't necessarily need to be as precise as in VR, because the world is already going to be locked in, and that makes the virtual objects, even some fuzziness in that location, forgivable. So I think it's interesting. I think we talked about last week that we think that this is all paving the way for Apple to do its own AR device at some point, whether they're goggles, whether it's handheld device, some type of pass-through device, and they just acquired a company that specializes in AR and eye tracking.
I don't know. Watching these videos actually makes me excited for just the raw iPhone AR capabilities more than I was before. You know, just being able to measure anything in your house using this tape measure device. It looks pretty convenient. The IKEA app that has been more or less announced, they're going to allow you to see what furniture looks like actually scaled to your
I
environment.
think that's a really great utilization.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing if you can just overlay your furniture on the world, but if it actually fits to scale, that's something entirely different.
Has anyone done any testing on how battery heavy, how processor heavy these apps are? I mean, even if you have your camera app open and if you're not recording video but just running the video through the iOS image processing, that drains your battery pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The big news this week is the SNES Classic.
I'm surprised you're not in line right now.
I know.
If you want to get one.
Well, I don't know where I can get in line. If you can tell me where I can guarantee, if I get in line now, where I'm guaranteed to get one on launch day, I'll do it. But it's gonna be released this September. They're like the NES Classic. There will be region-dependent versions. A stylized one for the U.S. that looks like the SNES that we had, and then a European one for the Super Famicom and Japan. And there'll be 21 games. So you guys look at the list of games.
Yeah.
There's Super Mario World, of course. You got your Star Fox. You got your Mario Kart, Contra 3, which
This
I'm
is all
really glad
great.
for.
I'm not looking for those yet. I'm waiting for the one game I'm looking for. Keep going.
Hold on, let me pull up the list. I don't have the list yet.
Well, the big news is it has a game that's never been released before.
What?
Yeah.
What game is that?
Star Fox 2.
DOS.
Oh, that might make it worth it then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I didn't even bother checking to see if this had already been leaked to the emulators.
So I think the word is that, yes, people have played Star Fox 2.
Okay, but never officially.
But never officially. And it's weird because the Star Fox 2 that comes with the SNES has to be unlocked. You have to play through a level of Star Fox 1, which that first level is great. It's easy. But you have to play that, and then you get access to Star Fox 2.
Did you not say Link to the Past, that Zelda game? Is that going to be on there?
It's on there.
Yep.
See, that's what I was looking for. That is my favorite Zelda game.
There's F-Zero, Kirby Superstar, Kirby's Dream Course, Mega Man X, although I wish it was X2, Secret of Mana, Street Fighter 2, Turbo, that's important, and Super Castlevania 4. Super Ghost, Ghouls and Ghosts. These are all, like, if you collect Red Nintendo Power back in the 90s, these were like the covers of every single issue.
Did you?
Oh yeah, totally.
It also comes with 2 controllers. No one's made a big deal out of that.
So
but the first one didn't.
Price is a little higher, right? It's $80 for the SNES Classic. It does come with 2 controllers. I think it's going to be a great value if you do the math. It's $4 a game. I don't know how often you're going to play all the games, but what you really, and of course you could emulate this stuff. You could build a MAME cabinet, but a lot of the appeal, there are, I think, 2 big appeals for the NES Classic that people didn't expect. 1, the interface was really great.
Yep.
The plug and play, the menu system, wonderful. And 2, of course, ended up being really easy to hack.
Has a USB port on the back, which if you plug into your computer, there's something on GitHub that allows you to put any game you want on it.
Absolutely.
Including SNES games, by the way.
Yeah, because it has the processing power for it. So the question really is, outside buying this form factor that you get for the SNES Classic, and something that no one has answered is whether it resets the same way. Like the purple toggles, like, are those spring loaded?
Right.
Is whether it'll be hackable.
I'm going to say no, because that had to have taken Nintendo by surprise how quickly that happened.
So you think no, meaning it'll take longer, like it'll never happen?
I don't know. If it's internet connected, then that's going to put, I mean, obviously it'll be hacked. But I don't know if it'll be as easy to do as
so this one is internet connected?
No, it doesn't say that. I'm just saying if they're smart, they would make an internet connected.
I don't think they would.
Dude,
these are stocking stuffers.
There's so much money to be made in DLC. They could have had new game packs every 6 months.
That's what the Switch is for.
How are we skipping over the big thing? Which is, are they going to make enough of these?
Oh, well, they say they're going to increase production significantly over the last one. But, everyone's excited to get in line somewhere.
You can go on eBay right now and pay up to $390 to quote unquote guarantee a SNES Classic on day one, which
Horrible.
is absurd. Don't
Horrible.
do it. You know, it with tax, with shipping, it's going to be like $100, which you have to ask, like, is it worth it? If you have a NES Classic and you already have hacked it to put SNES games on there, do you really need this?
Yeah, but nobody has an S Classic. Like, we happened to get one luckily off of Amazon because we were in that 5-minute window, but nobody got one.
What it is, it's the perfect price point for Christmas. That's
It's
what
a stocking
this is.
stuffer.
Yeah, this is. It's not a stocking stuffer. $100 is more than a stocking
Well, it's
stuffer.
sure.
But with the price that consoles are at right now, this is much more, acceptable.
The only thing that makes me think it's the same platform and it will be just as easily hackable possibly is because it's coming out so quickly after the last one was taken off the market. It's less than a year. It takes a long time to iterate and get these things fabricated if they're going to actually do a true revamp with DRM and possibly Wi-Fi.
So we've gotten the NES, we got the SNES. Sega announced their pack that was on mobile that we talked about last week. So are we going to keep seeing this iteration? N64 next? We're going to get some GoldenEye action?
I think that
next
becomes
year?
less appealing. I think sprites, there's so much.
Where's the end of the nostalgia train?
Yeah, I think SNES.
I think SNES too.
I would think 16-bit's the end of the nostalgia train too.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about sprites that just have a permanence that they always will look good.
Well, they scale better.
Yeah,
I think
exactly. You're not trying to create 3D realism.
Textures on, yes, you can get anti-aliasing, but GoldenEye on HD TV does not look good despite those mods.
Exactly.
No.
And doesn't play well either. Yeah. 2D platformers, RPGs. I wish there was Mario RPG. No Chrono Trigger.
Oh, well, then how are you going to find a game with the Power Glove inside of it?
And maybe that's the thing. Mini Power Glove. Power Glove Classic.
What do you mean mini Power
I
Glove?
don't know. It's like they're all mini devices.
For small hands?
You don't actually put your hand on it. You just press the buttons on the outside. No Super Scope on this. God, the Super Scope is weird for SNES. I think I'll want one. I think it is kind of pricey when you think of like everyone who wants a Switch who doesn't have a Switch yet, right? And if you're looking to buy a Switch for yourself this Christmas, Nintendo says they never artificially constrain supply, but the Switch is $300 plus games, and this is going to be 80 games. You could buy Switch plus Zelda or Switch plus Super Mario Odyssey and not buy the SNES Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone checked on prices of NES Classic on eBay, gone up or down?
No.
It's got to be high.
I mean,
So.
Here's a question. If the SNES Classic comes out and it is hackable, and people do hack because it's the same software, and it's the same hardware, let's assume.
Yep.
Right? Would you rather have the NES form factor and have that as your go-to box that plays whatever games, or the SNES form factor?
Well, okay, so personally, I never owned a SNES. I skipped 16-bit. So I went from Atari and NES and Sega Master System to the N64. So I completely skipped 16-bit. But
so you have no interest in these
for
games?
me, the NES Classic is where it's at nostalgia-wise. The problem is, even if you hack it and you try to play SNES games on it, you don't have enough buttons.
Well, you can always use a 8-bit Moto.
Yes, you have to get a new
third-party
controller. But the
third-party controller.
SNES is sort of backwards compatible, so you can play anything.
That's right.
I'm going to go out there and say I think the SNES is pretty ugly. I always thought it was kind of ugly. The NES is where it's at.
That's the spirit.
What about Mario Paint?
Looks like NES Classic completed listings are going for between $200 and $250.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Amazing.
It's well worth your time to find a original one and blow on the cartridges. It'll be fine.
Well, or you can spend that money and invest in an Amazon Echo Show.
I'm so excited about this.
Kishore is clapping
Why?
because it's arriving. Ours is arriving today.
Yeah.
Hopefully after the podcast, it'll be in a box outside this room.
Not
when we
just that.
walk.
I think it was a podcast. It must have been like 2-3 months ago where Norm just randomly is like, wouldn't these be better with a screen on it or something, or like a projection?
Well, we've talked about this for
yeah,
years.
for a long
exactly.
time.
The
And it-
display is essential. It's gonna be essential. Next step, logical next step.
And then initially I was very resistant to that for some reason, and then it sunk in. I'm like, yes, I want this. I want this so badly. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to watch, like, YouTube and Amazon Video and whatever in the kitchen, and
Well, here's
have
a caveat.
display recipes and
Right.
display the timer and blah blah blah.
Reviewers have the Echo Show already. Reviews are out,
Okay.
and one of the big complaints about it is that the screen.
Is
The screen is low resolution.
oh,
It
I
is-
wasn't expecting much.
It's 1024 by 600, so it's not even 720. It's
Wow.
like the same as one of a bare bones Kindle. Yeah, I know, right? The room
I thought when you said
I'm-
low resolution, I thought you were going to say it's 720.
I'm back.
And like
I'm back
720
to
is fine.
6.5. I've gone down. No. But I don't know how video is going to look. I'm really curious about the camera. I'm really curious about what the social implications of being able to dial someone, having this in the kitchen, and make phone calls. But I don't know how many people have Echo shows. Like, no one in my family is going to have it.
We're gonna,
Kishore is going to have one. I'm
we're
the
gonna
only
call
person
each
that's gonna
other.
Call Kishore nonstop.
Are you going to whitelist each other for automatic pass-through? So you don't have to answer?
I mean, I might as well because no one else I know has it, right? So it's going to be Kishore anyway. Like, he's the only one that's going to be dialing me.
I'm going to have one.
Okay, you're going to have one?
Oh, all right.
All right.
Three-way.
Okay.
Three-way call.
You can't do three-way calls.
Oh.
It's one and one. What a wasted opportunity.
Yet. You can't do three-way calls yet.
Yet.
I actually, beyond all of this kind of stuff, I want to make sure that they also don't go backwards on what I think the Echo was always so good at, and that the microphone array has been great. And so wonder if this new sort of factor is going to change how effective that array is. I would think not.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I'm going to keep a close eye on.
Because there's now a front.
Yeah,
right? There
exactly.
was never a front to the device.
And I don't think that this is like because of the design of it. It's not a device you put in the center of a room. It is something you put against a counter, against a wall.
Where are you putting yours?
At the end of an island.
Yeah, kitchen, though.
Yeah, kitchen.
Yeah, kitchen's where mine's going.
Yeah.
I think that's the
It'll
number
go
one
next,
place
next
that
to
makes
the
sense.
fruit bowl, next to the avocados.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, have some conversations with some fruit flies.
Can this thing do everything that the one that goes in your dressing room can do?
Judge you?
Yeah.
I don't think it does that.
Because it has a camera.
We'll
if
find
it-
out.
Yeah.
If it does that, I'm going to return. Get out of here.
Yeah. So yeah, really curious. We'll be covering it, of course, on the site. Now, this next story, how many people? Only one of us here is using a Windows computer. Windows 10. Now, this is how big of news is this? Windows 10 apparently some of its source code was leaked.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good for hacking reasons, especially given all of the ransomware that just happened this past week too. I'm not happy about it.
So specifically, this is part of Microsoft's shared source kit, which is code that it sends to some of its partners, right? And it includes source code to the base Windows 10 hardware drivers, plus its USB Wi-Fi stack, storage drivers, and some of its server code. When will we know if this has implications to Windows users? Will we until an attack happens?
I do not know, man.
Until I get home later tonight and I can't use my computer.
I mean, I guess the silver lining is maybe it'll be improved to some degree if anybody who finds bugs actually reports them rather than abuses them. It's almost sort of like open sourcing.
Another twist on that ransomware thing that you just brought up is a couple years ago when we first started hearing about ransomware in a big way, like hospital systems were attacked, the FBI's policy here in the U.S. was to encourage people just to pay.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they've undergone a big shift in that policy because people that paid didn't necessarily get their data returned to them. And in often cases, it was less than 50%. I think I heard a figure like closer to 30 or 40%. And so now there's like new strategies being deployed on what to do.
Wait, the
Yeah,
FBI said don't pay anymore because paying wasn't working? That
I don't know if that's the logic that was employed.
Huh.
I don't know if those two things are related, but I'm sure it's a factor.
Yeah.
Now I'm scared to go home and check my Windows machine.
Updating Windows.
Well,
restart.
dude, I just got the creative update.
I just did that too.
Creators update.
And There's just like two things changed that had bugged the hell out of me, and I had to fix both of them. I spent like a half an hour doing it. One, like, for whatever reason, Chrome is just constantly automatically sending Windows updates, and I had to figure out how to turn that off. So I was getting Windows notifications without saying do this. But more importantly, I use Open Command Prompt here all the time. That's when you open up a folder, you shift right-click, and you can choose Open a Command Prompt here, and you get a little, DOS prompt. And I do that all the time for various reasons. They took that out. It's gone. Like it was used to be enabled by like some power tool. Now it's gone. You open like some PowerShell, which doesn't do any of the same stuff. And I had to hack the registry in order to get it to come back. And I had to find
not serving creators
3 different tutorials to actually help me do it.
I think. Why did they do that?
I thought it was ransomware. I thought Microsoft wanted me to pay $10 to get it back. That's what it felt like.
Just to get a DOS prompt.
Yeah, I don't know why. They
through a shortcut.
They're pushing you towards this PowerShell that they brought out like a decade ago.
But you can open the command prompt anywhere with just CMD.
Yeah, but then you have to change directory. The benefit of open
this
command
opens
prompt
up
here is right in that folder.
In Windows Explorer.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And when you're doing microcontroller development, like you do this all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Wow. All right. Send that feedback note to Redmond.
Done.
Have someone on it. A little bit of good news for privacy nuts. I know, Jeremy, you're not one, as long as you're getting the good ads.
No, our blinds are open.
Google no longer will be scanning your Gmail for ads. Now, if this is news to you, hey, guess what? Google has been scanning all the messages. A computer has been reading all of your mail to pick out keywords to post those ads that you see at the top of your Gmail. Now, the good news for everyone is that I don't know anyone who's actually clicked on an ad in Gmail ever. Those are some of the most least effective ads.
That's probably why this has been discontinued.
Yeah, but now they're going to use your search data.
Yeah.
They're going to use the things that explicitly, that not, I mean, part of me thinks like it was kind of an irrational fear because no physical person was reading. It was all just keyword picking up. But also the fact that they would be parsing through email for any purpose and creating some type of database of for ad matching or for anything, that's what people were freaked out about.
Yeah. Were they previously doing search data as well, or is that?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not.
But the search data was going to be for search ads.
They're still going to be scanning your email for like indexing and virus scanning and all of the all that contextually aware stuff. I'm sure for Assistant, it's going to be doing that in the future. So all of that still remains. I don't think it solves privacy concerns about Google scanning your thing. It's just less creepy now. I have to say, so I had this experience. I've always had I've known how incredibly tracked my internet searching, especially my shopping history. The other day I bought a backpack for my kid online. And I swear I had Facebook open and I didn't reload the page. And I went over and there were already ads for backpacks on Facebook. That creeped me out because I'm like, I didn't even reload the page. How did it dynamically do this? Maybe I'm misremembering. But that ecosystem sharing is actually where my privacy concerns exist, not within like Gmail doing it itself.
I don't mind that at all. I feel like if it's targeted advertising and something that I actually was searching for, great. I just wish they would actually know when I bought something so they'd stop it. Because I'm constantly getting
this is true.
Advertisements for things that I just purchased. I don't need it anymore.
Did you see VidCon was this weekend?
Yes. So
have you ever gone?
I haven't, and I don't know. I mean, yes, we make videos on YouTube, and you can call us YouTubers, but I don't know if we would elicit the same response at all. Like, we're not the same category as these famous YouTubers who
teenagers wouldn't chase you down in a fountain, Norm.
100% they wouldn't. Terrified if they did. But I mean, there are people doing some fantastic videos. But like the YouTube community, creator community, is so big right now. I don't know if this we'd get the same value out of it. But I know there are interesting panels. I know a lot of people we know who work at Seeker, for example, went. And I heard some reports that it was very different tonally this year. So VidCon is created by the Vlog brothers, right? The Green brothers. Hank and John Green, and it was a place where YouTube fans can meet the people who make their favorite videos, and creators can meet each other and do collabs, and
then it turned more into an industry conference, if you will, with that component of fandom to follow it, because there is all these people from the industry were in one place.
Right, and YouTube makes announcements at VidCon about product releases, which is interesting to us, absolutely. But from that fan interaction standpoint, I heard that this year they really didn't allow the interactions to happen for safety reasons. So
there were still like dramatic happenings and whatnot, and some, there's always some drama at VidCon, but. Yeah, I heard it was toned down, and I also heard industry has toned it down. So not as many sort of like executives are showing up anymore because they're just not getting the kind of return. The big announcements aren't being made anymore. That being said, there were a few announcements, and we're going to get to one of them in the VR Minute soon. But there's a couple to note. So Verizon, who I guess is still buying Yahoo. I haven't heard the status of that deal, but that's still going through. They announced a new deal with Warner Brothers owned channels, which is like Machinima and Blue Ribbon and a few others. So it seems like with the Yahoo ad, Verizon's making a much bigger play into more refined content. YouTube has a VR announcement that we'll get to. They announced a larger rollout of YouTube TV. It's going to, I think, another 15 to 20 different markets.
So feature-wise hasn't changed. It's now just expanding.
Mm-hmm. And I've started to sour on it a little bit.
Are you still subscribing?
Yeah. But the other thing is they announced so many more YouTube Red original content. So it seems like YouTube's much more is moving that way, rather than just being a platform for creators, actually being a destination for original produced content. So I thought those were two interesting things. The other thing that I've heard is that there wasn't that much out of Facebook. And you would think, given all of their investments in video over the last years, we'd see a lot more from Facebook out of, at a conference like this.
Well, the 180 video thing I think is interesting, and that's a thing
we're going to get to that. I think.
So do you want to talk about it now, or should we?
Let's do VR Minute.
We'll save it for the VR Minute. I still would love to one day go to VidCon. I don't know if it's too big of a convention now. It's too late. We've missed the VidCon boat.
How many people will go attend VidCon?
Tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's every year I see the list of panels, and there's some really interesting ones. And obviously interested in the science and education panels, which is big on YouTube, and they have some pretty in-depth discussions. I'm less interested in the fan aspect, more interested in that industry, because you don't I think there's a lot of people doing very interesting under the radar content on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the place where you can learn from them potentially. You talk about that Arctic trip last year,
right,
as a place where you got to actually meet these people and learn a lot from them.
Yeah. A lot of them are very successful. I mean, I think it's tough to comprehend how big of a network YouTube is and how many little pockets and niches there are, and how many people are creating really great videos without a big subscriber base. And I don't know if VidCon is the place that you get. It's like the cream of the crop. The best people show up there, but I don't know what the best venue is for these creators to really have a best interaction. Maybe it's online. Maybe it's through YouTube. Maybe it's through YouTube's Uptime.
What's Uptime?
So
that felt like a joke. Felt like a knock joke.
What's up, dog? What's Uptime? What's Uptime? Uptime was an experimental app that YouTube launched earlier this year out of Google's internal incubator. They have their non-Moonshops incubator called Area 120. And it was an app they did to allow people to watch YouTube videos together and then in
what
small
do you mean,
communities, in syncs together.
Oh, so we could watch a YouTube video together in 3 different locations?
Yeah, so it's almost like Facebook Live, where people send their little emojis across the stream for a video as they're watching Facebook Live, except not for live video, except for on-demand video, YouTube video.
So it's an app.
It's an app, and it launched earlier this year, and now it's they've taken it out of the experimental section, and so I think you can try it. I'm curious. You guys want to try?
Is it only on Android?
I am not sure.
No, it says on the
no,
iOS App
iOS,
Store.
yeah.
Well, have fun.
I mean, I guess
That's weird that Uptime, a thing that's natively about YouTube, doesn't exist on Android.
Well, I think the bigger question is there a benefit to watching YouTube? Do people want to watch video, not live video, but video on demand at the same time? Like Netflix.
Netflix has that same app out. They didn't produce it, but somebody made it.
Well, Microsoft did that shared
Yeah.
Netflix experience thing where you can all sync up and you have your avatars and you watch. And we've done, big screen in VR where we've thrown up videos on screen. But outside of the VR context where we have these social interactions, is there a social benefit to watching a video at the same time? Like if I had if I was on a YouTube page and I wanted to, there's a new movie trailer that came out and I wanted to watch it, and at the same time you guys were watching it to get the same reactions, and there was a link that could say share this with friends, so when everyone presses ready, it'll play. Like, would that be beneficial? Or should I just watch the trailer and then send you the link and wait for you to watch it?
I don't know for something like trailer. Is trailer like enough of an oomph to it? Because I think Stranger Things, hell yeah, for it. So I think it's like that deeper original content. And if that's where YouTube is going, then this can have a lot of value.
Well, I think shorter form content makes a lot of sense because those are the places where people can pull up these services at any time, YouTube any time. It's not going to work if you're on your phone on a bus while I'm on a computer while someone's at the office.
Well, here's an idea. What if the tested member community synced up and watched This Is Only a Test next week on YouTube
At the same time.
at the same time with Uptime? I think no one will do that.
I feel like that's the kind of thing that sounds better than it actually is in practice. I mean, I feel like that's one thing that we wanted from the internet from the beginning, is the ability to do things in sync with other people who weren't in the same room.
Turntable.fm.
And we got, right, like we got music and we got to a degree video, but it just seems like the interest in doing asynchronous is so much better. The experience of doing async is so much better. And you can still reflect on it. You can still comment. It's like everyone can still share in that experience. It just doesn't happen at the exact same time. Like I can imagine a long-distance relationship. Maybe you have family across the country or a significant other. Doing a date like that might have appeal, but at the same time, I know lots of people who do that, and they just agree to see a movie on the same night, and then they have a phone call and talk about it
Afterward,
Yeah.
in their normal social, then they'll jump into
right.
a chat room in a VR session, and then they'll talk about it
Because
or a podcast.
who talks during a movie? What respectful person actually does that anyway? So I mean, I guess the chatting is there, but still, I want to focus on the film.
It's not the chatting so much because it's more about like the emojis. It's like
Yeah.
sending up these instant reaction likes and dislikes.
Right.
And something I do like about Facebook Live is that any live video then becomes archived as a video on demand. And if you watch a video that was previously broadcast live on Facebook, you still get the feed of comments and responses in real time to when that video was
Yeah,
originally
I like
aired.
that too.
And
That's
that's something I wish.
Twitch does that, right? If you rewatch a Twitch stream, aren't the comments in sync?
Yes, they are
Yeah.
also in sync. Yeah, and that's something that like to for an asynchronous experience. That's how you can join in on a real time experience. That's I think the appropriate merging of the two. One last bit of kind of tech news. If you haven't seen this video up, it's on the site now. But I dropped my camera again.
So I saw that video pop up in my notifications. I'm like, why is this video from last year playing?
Well, one, we didn't make a video last year.
Oh, I just
There was-
remember the experience.
This is a
of it.
Mandela effect. Oh, Tested's first Mandela effect.
Wait, you
Mandela effect.
you have a video of dropping the camera?
No.
Oh, okay.
So
I do remember when this happened though, last year.
and Will remembers it as well. And we never filmed it. We only
Oh.
talked about it on the podcast. This is Tested's first, and people in the comments thought they had seen it as well. So last year, what really happened was I got the 5D Mark IV. I went to the cave to show it to Adam one day, and literally as I was walking into the cave, dropped the camera and smashed the lens filter, and then Adam felt bad and then helped me remove the broken filter by taking the lens to a bandsaw. And we talked about this on Still Untitled, but we never shot any video about it. Now, we did release a new video yesterday, 2 days ago now, about me dropping the camera again and Adam doing the same thing and taking it to a bandsaw and trying a lens wrench. But people were like, oh, this video is old. I remember seeing this.
Huh.
We never showed video. We never filmed it. It was never filmed.
Why are you dropping your camera so much?
I don't use a strap.
There you go.
Yeah.
Use a strap. Yeah. Always use protection.
I do like, there's in the video, there's a picture of Norm in the corner of Adam's shop, just like hands to his face, just as the camera is going into the bandsaw.
I did not want her to say anything while that was happening.
Because Adam's done this before. You don't want him to get confident. Right?
Exactly. Overconfident. I was like, let's let it happen. The camera's rolling, which is like, then there's even more pressure to make it work. Yeah. It was pretty amazing. All is well now. It was a $40 lens, but better to have to buy a new $40 lens than a new $1,700 camera lens.
Yep. Is that it?
I think that's it. Oh, before we move on to our next segment, I want to thank the sponsor of this week's episode, and that is Procurify. Did you know that Facebook and Google reportedly paid close to $100 million in fake invoices for a period of 2 years? How could this possibly happen with two of the world's largest organizations? Well, invoicing and purchasing fraud plague companies of all sizes, and no one is immune to it. In fact, according to a 2016 Tungsten Network research report, more than half of American businesses now see invoice fraud as their single biggest threat. So Procurify works with hundreds of companies across the world to track and control their spending. Whether you're a startup worried about your burn rate, or a small company that wants a streamlined purchasing process, or a mid-sized company that wants to end wasted spend, Procurify gives your teams an easy way to control organizational spend with features that help them make the right decisions when they need it. Get full visibility and control over your spending and transform your spend culture by signing up for a free 5-day trial at procurify.com/test. Again, that's procurify.com/test. And thank them for supporting this podcast. And thank you guys for listening. And now it's time for...
Time for a moment of science. All right, super quick. Bio 101 oversimplified. So like DNA, all those letters in DNA basically are instructions to build proteins. And these proteins go do things. Wow, that was very incredibly accurate description of biology. But those proteins have certain shapes, and they fold together in a really intricate pattern. And that folding has a process to it that can be very complicated, but it generally works well. And we have mechanisms to, when that folding doesn't work right, to sort of correct it. But every now and again, a certain type of protein called a prion, misfolds in a certain way that causes a cascading effect of misfolding across other proteins. This is what we in the business call real bad. And so like there are certain diseases that are prion diseases that are these protein misfoldings. They'll cause massive damage in structures, like holes in your brain, visible holes in your brain. Well, currently there is a disease that is infecting a number of wildlife in the U.S., mostly like deer, called chronic wasting disease. And it's a prion protein misfolding disease where they basically pick this up from the environment, this protein up from the environment. It pervades their system and they die. There's no cure. And they're able to pass along this protein in like their urine and other ways. So other animals pick this up really quickly. It's very transmissible. But scientists have come up with a solution to this. The innovative solution is to burn those animals.
What?
Literally, there's no solution. They can't stop the misfolding. And so
Like burn the corpses?
they're going to quarantine the animals and burn them. It's across 24 states right now.
Wow.
And they can't seem to come up with a mechanism to stop this. Carl Zimmer wrote an incredible article in the New York Times about this. But it's one of those like funny things, like when we talk about sort of just folding as this really basic function of proteins, how much of a huge ramification it has when it gets out of control.
How is it passed on? It's not a virus.
It's like literally a molecule that's just out there.
Wild.
And if it gets into like another animal system like this, it will cause that misfolding. Mad cow disease is a prion disease. So that's why quarantine is the only sort of treatment.
It's very dystopian.
It is. It's terrifying. Eggs.
Okay. I like me some eggs.
No, you don't. You hate hard-boiled eggs.
I hate hard-boiled eggs. I do like eggs in almost any other form.
Okay. So we're used to that chicken egg shape, that sort of teardrop, sort of ellipse-like shape.
Don't tell me that's not natural.
It is natural.
Okay, good. I thought you were gonna.
But eggs come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. Some are spherical, some are more elongated. A research group, and this is the cover story in Science this week, went to the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology, which is here in the Bay Area, and studied 1,400 different egg species and found the only variant between them is how elliptical they are and how much of that asymmetry, that teardrop effect they have. And you were able to explain every bird species, that every bird's egg shape that exists, just from those two factors. So then they use this data to sort of plot, like, what's the evolutionary basis for egg shape? Because people have always come up with these crazy explanations for it.
Hold on. Let's guess. It's fun pseudoscience speculation time. Why are eggs egg-shaped?
For laying practicality. It's easier
okay.
to lay an egg-shaped egg.
Mm-hmm.
For hatching practicality.
So one thing to note is that there was long hypothesized that the layer of the egg, the calcium outside it, dictates the egg shape. That's not true. There's a membrane inside that actually dictates the shape more than anything else.
This is that weird membrane that you see when you peel a hard-boiled egg open.
Yeah, if you actually want to see it, put a chicken egg in a glass full of vinegar and wait a couple days and just sort of like rinse it off, and you'll be able to see that membrane really clearly.
Okay.
Don't eat that egg.
The vinegar takes away the calcium.
Mm-hmm.
You can remove an eggshell, completely dissolve it in a vat of vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you get without cooking it?
Yeah.
So it's just like, here's your...
You have to kind of like, there'll be some calcium salt that'll be on the surface that you have to kind of wipe away or rinse off.
That's funky.
Yeah. Don't eat that
Don't
egg.
eat that. Yeah.
Don't eat that. There's been explanations of like egg shape so that they don't roll out of nests or roll off cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeremy, ding, ding, ding. It's all about pelvic shape and geometry.
Yep.
Wow.
And so birds, in order to like basically fit inside the egg in the most energy efficient way, have that sort of raindrop effect with the ellipse to sort of have their wings fold into that egg shape as efficiently as possible. And that explains how egg shapes are.
Does this also explain eggheads?
No. We have an anniversary coming up. I won't be here next week, but July... Oh, sorry, Jeremy, you're about to say.
Is there an ideal egg for strength? Like, because you can't squeeze an egg and break it. You know, that's the old trick. When you're a kid, you can't break an egg by squeezing it unless you're wearing a ring. I wonder.
I
wonder what the shape is that provides the best strength.
I don't know.
Okay, moving on.
I won't be here next week, but July 4th, 2012. Do you remember where you were?
2012. Hold on.
What?
5 years ago next week.
I don't know.
We're preparing
You
for
asked me the iPhone question, so
Comic-Con.
I could probably look and find out where I was. But
Dear Diary.
in Geneva, there was this symposium with a bunch of scientists that got into a room, and they showed this chart, this kind of hockey stick curve that has a little bump at it. And that was the announcement of the discovery of the Higgs boson.
Oh, yeah.
Was
right on.
5 years ago on July 4th, 2012. They had confirmed by smashing two protons together and watching the decay products of two tau, which are heavy electrons, decay further into muon and electron. They're able to infer the existence of a Higgs boson, which is a elementary particle that is part of the standard model. And I say really specifically a Higgs boson because we don't know if there's just one or if there's multiple kinds of Higgs boson out there. But that was one of the most astounding and heralded physics discoveries of the century. They seem to be piling up these days. That won Peter Higgs a Nobel Prize. So happy anniversary, which coincides with our next episode of Science in Progress, which will be out today when you're listening to this.
Maybe it's check Monday morning.
Okay, it'll be out soon. That
yes.
it documents our visit to CERN to look at some of the upgrades to the Large Hadron Collider. And finally, Jeremy,
Sure.
I have my Watch This for Science. Ready?
Yep.
You can watch on my screen and react to it. Here is a snake.
Ah, my God.
Oh, no.
That's wild.
My recommendation of a video for this.
I clicked the link. It's on my screen too.
My recommendation for you for this week is a GIF that shows a snake molting up close and personal.
Yeah.
Molting, shedding its former self.
That's sped up, obviously, right?
Not much. No.
Really?
No. That's not sped up.
Oh.
Oh yeah. Good stuff.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Okay. Do you want to talk about Echo Arena?
Desperately.
Let's talk about Echo Arena. Now, we're going to have an episode of projections out this week, hopefully cross our fingers, on Friday, where we're going to show some video and talk more in depth about Echo Arena. But Lone Echo, game coming out July 20th, had its open beta for its multiplayer, free-to-play multiplayer mode, Echo Arena, this past weekend for 3 days, like 10 a.m. Friday to 6 p.m. on Sunday. To stress test its servers and matchmaking. It was really the first time that a lot of people had experienced its locomotion mechanic plus its zero-G gameplay.
So we've been waiting
it's
for this game.
life-changing?
We've been waiting for this game since OC3.
Yeah.
Oculus Connect 3, which was almost a year ago. Like, what?
October.
Yeah, okay, so 9 months ago or so.
So all three of us played.
Not together, though.
Not together. We never. You didn't have a choice of where to match. You just sort of matched into something.
Because the open beta was a test of their matchmaking system.
Yes.
I only played a couple matches just because I was on at a time when the server crashed, and so I just didn't have time to do it. And they managed to get through those, but it was unstable a lot this weekend. But let's talk about the actual experience.
So the game, the structure of the multiplayer puts you into a lobby, a shared lobby space first. Where you get acclimated to the gameplay rules, and you are in zero-G. You're a robot in zero-G. And we've talked about Lone Echo, where you have your full body in the game floating around. You can grab anything. You can push off anything. There is occlusion resistance to objects. You don't phase through things. You can pick up objects, and you can bat objects around and get a bat that you pick up stuck into a wall or something. But in terms of, and you can also fly around with thrusters on your hands. I had fun in the multiplayer experience. I had a ridiculous amount of fun just floating around that zero-G space station.
Yeah, you mean the lobby?
The lobby.
Yeah, so I don't know how many people they allow in that maximum, but maybe 10, I don't know, 16. And the games are 3v3, at least for this beta they were.
Beta.
And you're right. So in the lobby, you could go into a battle room where you could practice throwing the disc into goals. You can go into another room, which is a combat test, where you could learn to punch. That's another mechanic, is you can punch the enemies in-game in order to make them release the disc. The whole game is based around throwing a disc into the opponent's side goal.
And the lobby actually is built like a space station. You're like flying through corridors. You are going into other areas. They do a good thing where they have these barriers that you can pass through or grab onto. They just float out, and you can like grab onto surfaces that you can also pass through. The animations are incredible.
Yeah, they look great.
You mean the hand animations? Yeah, particularly. Yeah, there's actually a really good PDF. It's a not TED Talk. It's a talk that they did somewhere, SciGraph maybe. You can download it from their website, Ready at Dawn. HighEnd.com, and it talks about the animations of the hand and all the steps they put into that, and that's where they put most of their animation resources.
It's magical.
It's really great. It's not prefab stuff. It's like they are grasping geometry in the world no matter where you put your hand. And it doesn't always, like, the position generally matches up to where your hand is, but your fingers don't necessarily match up to where your fingers are.
But it ends up not mattering.
But it feels great. It feels really good.
Because
proprioception.
You're holding, your Oculus Touch controllers, and you're really, in terms of the grab mechanic, you're only using your middle finger for the grab button. But looking at the in-game model, you could be grabbing the edge of a corner of a wall or a flat surface or a ball, but it all just feels right because visually it looks right. And even when you're grabbed onto an object, as you rotate your body around the surface, the hand animation shifts and changes to make that grab feel more logical.
How would you hold your hands when you're trying to punch people in the head?
What do you mean? You make a fist.
You make a fist.
Yeah, is that what? That's what I did too. That was sort of like natural for
You
me
have
to
to.
do.
You have to make a fist. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the part I struggled with. I loved all of the hand animations, but coming to like switching over to the punch, I always struggled with. Maybe that's something I'll just acclimate to.
So
it was hard to do.
I didn't
hit it right.
I didn't find it was hard to do. What I forgot to do often when I was trying to grab the the disc or a surface was I would grab when I got there. When really there's this whole auto grab feature where if you just make a fist, you will grab onto whatever object your hand comes into contact with. That's the way to do it. But the game itself, 3-on-3, orange and blue, and this starts off with a joust. So it's countdown, and then you're in these launch tubes, and you hold onto the launch tube, and then you launch out, and you can fling yourself off that launch tube to go faster than your thrusters would normally be able to take you.
Yep.
But if you're organized, your team can grab onto you, and then they go that fast as well. Then they can fling off you and double the speed again, and then a third time if the third person, if you're all in line doing the same thing.
That's, I think, another brilliant design decision. They made you and other points interactive, so you can grab other people.
Yeah.
And I can grab your face, I can grab an enemy's face, and it just becomes another surface in the world. And one of the reasons they were able to do this is you can only grab with one hand at a time. You can't grab on two hands,
Right.
And then because then it wouldn't work. Then you would ghost away from your hand model.
You can hold the disc and grab a person, though. And
yes.
that's the only way to go faster. If you're holding the disc, you're slower than everybody else.
Right. You can't turbo.
Right. You can't boost. You can only go, I think, 4.65 meters a second.
It's astounding how comfortable this game is for how fast-paced and how spatially aware you have to be. Everyone I was talking to, you're using voice comms the whole time, was remarking about how you wouldn't get any nausea because they're not doing any rotation.
Comfortable but tiring, though.
Yes, it is. It's a physically exerting game, and I'm like swinging my hands wildly trying to grab surfaces.
I think there were more casualties posted to Reddit than any other game in terms of broken objects in the room.
Yeah.
Or controllers or ceilings.
You feel really immersed. It's maybe the best locomotion mechanic I've seen in a VR game. It also makes me think that this would work outside of Zero-G. I wanted, with the grabbing mechanic, I wanted like the Spider-Man game. You know, grabbing onto a wall, climbing, and then bouncing off, and then grabbing on other things.
Well, the Climby does that.
Climby does that, but I want like the super powered.
What about adjusting the gravity level?
Yeah, I mean they could do all sorts of things. Right?
I wonder if adding gravity to this would affect nausea, though, because I think part of part of what makes this game so comfortable is the fact that you're going in a straight line, and you're not. There's no parabola. Like you're not generally falling down and giving you a sense of different motion than a straight line.
And there's conservation of momentum.
Yeah.
When you're
yeah,
floating,
exactly.
You're floating until you grab something else.
And then you grab something, and then you're one-to-one. Like you grab a wall or what have you, and you move around. You're going just as fast as your hand is.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever, like that's not nauseating. But then they never allow you to yaw. You can spin either in real world or with an analog stick. There's snap turning. But I think that this game is phenomenal in terms of giving you a wonderful sense of motion without creating a sense of nausea.
And the game itself, the multiplayer game itself, felt competitive. By the end of 3 days, people were really good
or
at
not,
the game.
And that was difficult. Like there's a huge skill delta even by the end of this weekend.
Yeah. And I played with one of the final matches with two people who were just they had it down,
Yeah.
and I just played goalie because I couldn't keep up. But it was very satisfying to play goalie, to catch the disc in air and toss it out. And
A lot of people are comparing it to Rocket League.
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels. And so I imagine there's going to be tactics, like defensive tactics,
Quite
that
a lot.
start show up.
Little things like you can grab your opponent, and like I said, your boosters can only get you up to about 5 meters a second. But if you grab an opponent or one of your teammates and fling yourself off of him or her, you can go much faster. So when you grab onto an opponent, you have a choice between using them to gain velocity or hit them in the head. You can't do both because hitting them stops them.
Right.
So you have to make that decision.
And I love reaching out to an opponent, and they have to be situational aware. You have to be situational aware, know where everyone else around you. I can grab their feet and basically climb up their body to smack them in the head.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that I wish. I mean, it's not possible, but I got punched in the head a couple times where somebody did that, but I couldn't tell they were there.
There's a sound, but it's very subtle. A lot of people are requesting a tweak to that.
Right. I mean, there are so many possibilities. I'm sure they've tested a lot of different power-up abilities or things to neutralize people, like, and there's just endless. But I think the important thing was getting the movement and the physics down, and they got that. And yes, the game they've made is competitive and fun, and who knows how many legs they'll have once it comes out later in July. But it really gives me hope for like this to be the start of a new genre of VR games.
Yeah,
Zero-G VR games.
I agree. I think this is a mechanic that is going to be a template. It works so well that I wouldn't be surprised if in the same way that we saw Doom become the template for first-person shooters or Quake, where, whether it be Duke Nukem or Call of Duty, like they all follow this archetype. I wonder if Zero-G won't be that archetype for VR.
The metaverse in Zero-G. It's just it's space stations and space stations.
Because people don't like teleportation. They want smooth movement, but they don't want to throw up. And this seems to be a solution to that.
Right. Again, you can't flip upside down.
You can. You have to turn on the options.
Yes, you have, but like by default, everyone is still
right.
Up is always gonna be up for everyone.
Right.
And of course, in space, there is no up. Up is just relative to you.
Yeah.
I loved it. I can't wait for the actual gameplay, like the
single player,
like the single player campaign.
Single player, yeah. I mean, we played a little bit of that at OC3, and it's it's the same movement mechanic, and that's what counts. And it's a cool environment, space station stuff.
But I imagine they're going to like train you to exploit some of these things that we've talked about that are happening in Arena that you're going to have to do in the context of a campaign. I think it'll be great.
I don't know. For me, I feel like the campaign's going to be cool, but this multiplayer game is...
there's no question the multiplayer is where it's at. Especially, like, the only thing that was lacking for me, and I think I mentioned this to you on Twitter, is that I really want to be able to match with my friends and play as a team.
Yeah.
And that's going to come.
And you can also be a spectator mode.
Yeah, you can have... There's going to be 5v5, and I think they'll allow just as many spectators in those games.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Me too, man.
July 20th. Coming out soon.
I've been on the Discord channel every day just because that's all I can do. Like I just want to, and the developers are up there, by the way. Like, and they were in game chatting with people, giving them tips.
Oh, I play with some developers.
They're really good. Yeah, they are really good. But it's also nice of them to hang out and foster the community.
No, they should be proud of their game. Little sad news. Cast AR, which used to be Technical Illusions, Jerry Ellsworth's company that she started after leaving Valve with Rick Johnson, has reportedly shut down.
Well, it was a Valve project that they were started at Valve, and it was this augmented reality thing where you wear glasses that can that project an image that is reflected back from a reflective surface.
Very novel way of doing AR, as opposed to the lenses that you're using being that you're wearing, having the image imposed on the lens. They are projecting outward and bouncing light perfectly back into your eyes,
using the same material that's used to make stop signs that only reflects light back to the
in
center.
One direction.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so you don't. It's almost the same amount of brightness. It doesn't bleed out in any other direction.
But that means two people can use the same surface and get different images.
People. Yeah.
Right. So I think we both backed the Kickstarter.
I didn't.
I backed the Kickstarter, and when they got funded, they got VC, $10, $15 million worth of VC. The Kickstarter was quite successful. It was like a $1 million Kickstarter. They refunded everyone on the Kickstarter. So, yes, they've gone under, but all the backers got their money back.
Right. It's just unfortunate because it was a really novel take. I think they needed to create the software. Most recently, they had teamed up with some ex-Disney Infinity employees to create demos and games. And the idea is that maybe they would sell a kit that would have 1 or 2 pairs of glasses with these projectors in a better industrial design form factor, and then also a surface. You think of this being like a game board that then you could play like a D&D or like a third-person action game, and you could have multiplayer on that. They demoed it at Maker Faire a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and it
I
worked
remember
really
that.
well in a dark room. It's one of those things that because of the projection surface and the projection pico projectors, you have to play it in dark areas. And it was no easy feat to get this tech developed, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, maybe there was just so much momentum towards other approaches to AR. You know?
I mean, Jerry's kind of confirmed it on Twitter. She said there were some unexpected ongoings. She's good people. I hope maybe you can get her on projection sometime soon.
She's extraordinary.
Yeah, that'd be great to have her chat about that experience and the lessons they learned.
And a fellow pinball operator.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she has a massive collection.
And then finally, going back to VidCon and what YouTube announced there, they announced VR 180. Now, this is video, not 360 video cut in half, essentially. But based on right now, you can watch YouTube with Google Daydream with a VR headset, and you can watch 360 video. But we knew this. They were tracking what everyone's looking at. Facebook does the same with 360 video on Facebook. And based on their studies, they said the vast majority of people who view that video, even in headsets, view it mostly from the front perspective. And so to make the issue of stitching and the workflow of post-production easier, they're creating a new format, which is they're calling VR 180. Specifically, people creating content, designing content around just 180 degrees in front of you, from camera systems to stereo systems. What do you guys think about this?
So I get it. I mean, it makes sense. It should make life for creators easier. I still haven't had that killer experience in the medium, even like 360 or otherwise, that would say, yeah, I'm super excited about 180, the ability to look around, because I still have to like click and drag for the most part.
Well, that's not for people who are clicking and dragging. It's for people who are wearing headsets.
The good
no,
side.
but even in headsets, it's not
You're
seamless.
not clicking and dragging it.
No, I'm saying like the turning my head. There's a lag usually with Daydream or others.
Well,
it's not as seamless as with the full featured headsets.
I mean, the good thing is you get all that resolution compressed into half the space.
Right.
So
as opposed to being 2 circles. If you flatten out a 4K
Right.
video, you typically have like 2 spheres, one for front, one from back, a lot of wasted space. It's distorted. Some parts of the image are less clear than others. And also the constraint of filming in 360. I think it puts a burden on filmmakers right now to not think about what it means to have a wider palette, a wider canvas, but not necessarily need to fill what's behind you.
Yeah.
But until they allow or find a way to provide some amount of 3D positional movement within a 3D video or 180 video or anything like that.
Even light positional movement?
Yes. I mean, honestly, just a few inches. I mean, it's just enough to make my head move like this.
Isn't that a matter of just the player? The player itself could track. I mean, that's once the headsets track position, the mobile headsets track position.
Yeah.
The player itself can give you a little bit of drift and float the player within, give you a little bit of cushioning.
I mean, I think there's probably some magic to making it look convincing, but
With a little bit of stereo.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I want. When we first saw, it wasn't Tango, was it? When we first saw Google's array of GoPros.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Odyssey, yeah.
It seemed to imply they could do that, because there was a little bit of video where they were showing moving back and forth and deducing depth and even geometry in the scene.
You're talking parallax in
Exactly,
video.
that's it. I want that. Like when we have that and it's just everybody's doing it, then that, I think, video will become a lot more compelling. I
was interested in the fact that they also announced there'll be VR or these 180 cameras that come out this winter. And there'll be 2 lenses on it. And so we can see, like, I mean,
That would be stereo.
That would be stereo, but maybe also that means like the dual cameras we're seeing on phones will be able to get to the point where it can produce this content, a year or two from now.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think filmmakers, especially documentary filmmakers, having 360 is great for some things, but you're kind of locked into what you can film if you're always filming the back, and otherwise you're blocking people out, Anyway, that's it for the VR Minute. Let's get to our last segment. Testing this week. Hey, what have you guys been testing?
Well, besides Windows Creators Update,
Same here.
I did install the iOS update. The
iOS 11 beta.
iOS 11 public beta went live, I guess, late last week.
Okay.
Or maybe earlier this week. Yeah, earlier this week. And you know what? I can do without testing betas these days. I'm happy to wait. But I really wanted one feature, and it's one that I don't think most people are talking about, and it's this. I use the invert colors all the time, which is an accessibility option so that everything gets reversed. And if I'm browsing the web laying in bed at nighttime and it's a white background, I'll triple tap. I have it set up to a shortcut, turns everything black, and it's wonderful because it actually, it's much easier on the eyes. But this new feature, I forget what they're calling it, but it actually keeps most photos normal. And so it doesn't invert every photo.
So how does it decide what photos invert and what
It's not like that, and that was like it. So it works quite well in the News app, which is Apple's own app, which is, maybe that's part of why.
They're meta tagged. This is a photo.
Yeah.
This is an important photo. Don't invert that.
Right. And so, but it doesn't do it for everything. And so it's like.
So graphics, icons.
So it's a beta, and I'm hoping that will be tweaked before the actual comes out. But when it works, it's great because that's the one bad thing about inverting colors. So, and I'm enjoying that. I do like that feature. I'm not quite sure. They've also seemed to have added, I don't have a 3D Touch iPad mini, and they have enabled the ability to do some 3D Touch type stuff without having it. So if you hold down an icon long enough, it will actually expand and pop up like the new Control Center, where you've got your volume or your brightness level.
The terribly arranged Control Center.
Right. So
designer's nightmare.
You press and hold that, and it actually gets bigger and gives you the bigger one. So it's interesting that some people, they're allowing people to get access to these features without 3D Touch.
Well, that's because touch and hold is almost the same as the 3D Touch.
Yeah.
And I'm still testing the Surface Pro. Don't call it the 5. It's just called the Pro. The more I think about it, I'm happy with the performance, happy with battery life. Happy with the pen. Now, you guys have an iPad Pencil?
Mm-mm.
I mean, just try it for a second here. It's as good, I think, on the default Windows
Draw
apps.
a hot dog.
Not hot dog. I can't do that.
I think it's just as good in OneNote and their Sketchpad app in terms of latency as the iPad Pencil. But once you get into Photoshop, you do get the increased latency again.
Nice.
The thing I'm not liking is that it's just the same. They had an opportunity now that they have a Surface laptop and they have the Surface Book. They had an opportunity to make this either a bigger screen, a different form factor, do something different with it. And really, I know it's a little thinner, it's a little curvier on the edges, but the fact they sell the pens separately now, and it's pretty expensive if you want a good Core i5 256 gigabyte version, like $1,300. I think it's lost its place because it's not still as good as like the new 10.5 inch iPad in terms of the refresh rate and the pencil, the smoothness of the stylus throughout all the programs. But if you wanted just a good Windows PC, you could also use the Surface Book or the Surface laptop. You don't necessarily need the Surface Pro. Yeah.
Are you also testing the OnePlus 5 that you had here last week?
Yes. Swapping memory cards in and out. It had a bunch of updates I need to do to it, but that's going to be a little bit of a long-term test.
I have some beer for you guys to taste.
Oh, yeah? Did you bring it?
You brought it?
I didn't bring it.
Oh, okay.
But
are you happy with it?
I don't know how I feel about
You
it.
said it was all right last week.
Yeah.
This is the Pico Brew.
Yeah, I think I need Joey up here.
We'll get Joey back. up here and do some beer tasting with the Pico Brew, Kishore's homebrewed beer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that does it for us this week.
What's coming up on Tested?
Sean and Jeremy are shooting their newest episode of Bits to Atoms, and that's the next episode should be up in a couple weeks. Next episode of Science in Progress up. We're just catching up on a bunch of stuff. Product reviews, of course, and some more laser cutting projects. I had some things I saw on my trip over in Europe that I want to tackle and recreate with our laser cutter.
Just really quickly, did you get a delivery from
The Glowforge?
Yeah.
My Glowforge shipped, and UPS lost it.
Oh, so sorry.
What?
I know. I got the crumb tray.
Oh,
It's
nice.
a wonderful crumb tray.
Oh, I bet you it's beautiful.
But yeah, no, they seem to have found it this morning. It was supposed to be delivered Monday. It's now Wednesday, and now they're saying it'll be here Thursday.
Next Thursday?
No, like tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have a whole July 4th weekend that you could be laser cutting.
Yeah.
It's the most American thing, most patriotic thing to be doing.
My first project is going to be an Echo Arena light up thing, just to pass the time.
Wait, you're making a disc?
I would like to make a disc. I was just going to make the logo like light up in a
Oh,
little
like
light
an
box.
acrylic? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, you're making fan art already?
I'm like into the game. I am.
Wow.
Oh my
Wow.
I know.
Jeremy's making fan art for a game that's not out yet.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll be in London and Paris next week. So all those people that are talking about the UK Tested meetup, let's do it.
All right.
Where?
I don't know. There are comments on the.
Okay.
You guys
On
choose
the-
London or Paris?
I think London.
London, yeah.
All right.
Get some beers. All right, do we have an outro this week?
Hi there. I didn't see you.
Blah blah blah, VR, blah blah blah, perfect platform for vision, movie, blah blah blah, revenue tie-in, blah blah.
I think that was Patrick.
The views of Patrick Norton do not reflect those of Tested.com or Tested.com team. I'll see you next week. Bye.